And good day. Welcome back. The Constitution Line by Line. Here we are. I'm Paul Fabrizio.
I'm Don Frazier.
And History, Political Science.
History, Political Science.
That's right. Back together again.
And now we're on Article 1.
Yes.
Section
8.
Clause
7.
Okay.
All right. And we're talking about the powers of Congress. So one of those powers, the next one is to establish post office and post roads. Post offices and post roads.
It's important.
Yeah, it's important.
And the reason being...
Okay, explain this one.
Post offices,
dear Dr. Frazier.
so that you can actually have commerce.
Right.
So that you can correspond with each other and you can actually make business alliances with people that are over the horizon.
That's right. So you can get there, you can communicate with them, and you have a way to get there.
And the post roads are so that you can get there, and it also tells you what a terribly undeveloped country we were when these guys were building this. And so the first real federally funded road that ended up being an internal improvement project was the road that goes from Baltimore and up through Maryland heading towards the Northwest Territories. So it's an east-west road.
What is it called?
U.S.
Road
it's the federal,
1?
Yeah, it's the federal road. And there was a federal road down south that tried to connect all the Southwest Territories. But the idea is it doesn't do you any good to have a post office in, Chitlin Switch settlement if you can't carry that note, that piece of mail, to the next settlement. So post offices and post roads are inextricably linked.
Did those first roads today, are they interstate highways?
Well, the interstate highways approximate the routes. I mean, one of the things I like to do is actually go to the old road beds and find out where the roads are. And there's big stretches of the federal roads, plural, one up north, one down south, that you can still go to and take a look at. But the route is what the route is because you put a road where you have the right grade. You don't have to go over the hill. You can go through the hills and cross the river. So, anyhow, that's what this is about. Again, this is a supporting power to encourage commerce. That's why the Constitution's a commercial document, economic document as much as political.
That's the point he wants to make all through this thing. But one of the things that I think about is we have a U.S. Postal Service. Yeah. And it is now in competition with other commercial.
Private enterprise.
Yeah. And should that Postal Service continue to exist?
Only if you want to have confidence.
Okay, explain what you mean.
Well, I mean, use FedEx to use one of the competition.
Yeah, UPS.
And UPS. And sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't do so well. I used to use DHL all the time to ship documents that I needed, someplace overnight. They're out of business.
Okay.
Well, the federal government's never going to go out of business. FedEx may, UPS may. The federal government will not. So, in essence, the United States Postal Service, USPS, is a baseline. When all else fails, they're going to work, except when they don't.
But then does that mean that it is the responsibility of taxpayers to continue to fund this just in case the others fail?
I would say that there is a safety net function to the USPS that is important.
Does that function include them delivering mail on Saturdays, for example?
Well, I think that because we have an international sales cycle now, in the old days we'd have a 5-day-a-week sales cycle.
Right.
Now international dateline kind of starts to jack with exactly which day we're on. So Saturday delivery is probably appropriate to maintain the rhythms of business. But that's ultimately a political decision.
Yes, that's the point I wanted to make.
Well, I knew where you were going with that.
Yeah, you go economic, I'm going political.
Well, and then the question is, what about Sunday? And then what do you do with a USPS system that is broken?
Right.
Sometimes my mail ends up blocks and blocks away, or just disappears, just vaporizes.
Okay.
And
I think about the fact that we can get a piece of mail delivered across the country within a couple days, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I mailed my mother her Mother's Day card so that she will have it on time.
And used it USPS.
I used the Postal Service.
Yeah.
So it's just there is political expectations on the Postal Service.
Correct.
From basically certain generations of people.
Sure.
Younger people don't share those.
My daughter's never written a letter.
Yeah. So as time goes on, do we still keep this antiquated system? Because it could be very antiquated. Or does it simply become just a delivery system for packages?
Or advertisements.
And do we keep that just because the Constitution says it? Or do we just let it die?
Yeah, just let it die a natural death according to the rules of free enterprise.
Exactly.
Or do we socialize this?
It already is socialized.
Absolutely it is.
I mean, they're in debt. Congress gives them money.
They're terribly inefficient.
They're allowed to raise their rates. But they're doing something that I would argue is pretty amazing when you come right down to it.
Exactly right. That's how come that, this is something we need to keep around. Some people think that, rail systems should be part of the national government. We went a different direction. Yeah.
Amtrak. Well, part of them is.
Yeah, part of it is, but, it's not like over in Europe.
Right.
So this is one of those utilities that needed to be part of the role of the federal government, in my opinion. And the postal system is what drove internal improvements so that we can have faster and better lines of communication within the country.
Right. So I'm not denying there isn't a historic role for it. The question is today, is its role really just about a just-in-case situation? If private enterprise fails, and at least, we got the post office. Or does it continue to have a vital part of the U.S. economy?
I think it does.
Does it continue to need the special protection that it has in the Constitution? Because the Constitution protects it.
Yeah, absolutely. But look at how useful the post office has become.
I go there for my passports.
Go there for your passport. So this becomes
Get money
the
orders.
place where American citizens most frequently interface with the American government.
That's true.
And
we're unlikely to run across FBI agents or CIA agents.
Yeah, but you'll see a wanted poster in the post office.
That's right.
Because
or you'll see your mail delivery person.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you often think of that person? Hey, federal government, hey there.
Yeah, you don't think of these guys as being agents of the federal government, but they are.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is another genius part of the Constitution that we've just taken for granted. But, man, you take the postal system, post offices out of the mix, it would be interesting to see what sort of country we have.
Right. One of the political things that goes on is, do you keep some of these rural post offices around?
Oh, yeah.
And where do you put your post offices?
And who can be a postmaster? Because that used to be a plum job.
Yes, it was a political job.
As a political job, as political patronage.
Yes, you win an election, and guess what? You get to put your supporters in various jobs.
Or your uncle or your brother-in-law or your nephew.
Yeah. Oh, you get to be postmaster.
But I can't make my letters. Well, it doesn't matter. You get to be the postmaster of Chitlin Switch. Yeah, and so that leads to things like civil service reform later on. But post office is one of those constants that is bedrock in the way that we don't really consider the sheetrock in our house as anything other than a conveyor of paint or separators of rooms. I mean, we don't think gypsum board is particularly interesting.
Right.
But try to do without gypsum board.
Right. Try to do without the post office.
Try to do without the post office. You'll be very disappointed in the outcome.
Okay, very good. I think that concludes our discussion
of
that
our
line.
Okay.
We'll be back.